Hello, racers and race fans. My name is John, and I'm your host for the Maritime Pro Stock Tour's Hot Pass podcast. And here we are, episode 3 already. We had a little teaser come out in February. After that, our first full feature episode with Jordan Vino and Ryan Van Orscott came out. We had the chance to speak to the two rookies of the year for 2022 and 2023. And after that, we switched gears to a conversation with a long conversation with Craig Sonwhite. I really wanted to give our 3-time back-to-back-to-back champion a lot of time to, find out who he is, where he's from, how did he get here, and what explains a lot of his success. That was episode 2, along with some rookie conversations with Garth Bezanson and Gage Gilby. Really different perspectives there to see just the experience and the youth, guys that want to do basically what somebody like Craig and other past champions have accomplished. And as we sit here today, as we're about to launch into episode 3, we are less than 1 month away from the drop of the green flag at Scotia Speed World, May 18th. Tickets are on sale. They're available on the website maritimeprostocktour.com. Now, for episode 3, we're discovering a few more contenders on the tour this year. We're going to talk to some familiar names to some of you that have been following the tour for the last few years. And if you haven't, you're going to chance to find out about 3 of probably the top contenders for the title this year. That would be Russell Smith Jr., driver of the 88 from Lakeside, Nova Scotia, Nicholas Naugle, driver of the 08 from Dartmouth, Nova Scotia, and last but not least, Jarrett Butcher. After a breakout season, we had a chance to sit down with the number 54 from Porters Lake, Nova Scotia. And what better thing to do after all that than to mash it all up and sit down with Tim Terry and talk about predictions for the upcoming 2024 season, and also a little bit of a chat about who could be driving the Cat Car for Kids this year in the IWK 250. We don't know, but speculation's always fun. Good ideas from both he and I. We hope you'll enjoy our season predictions and our thoughts on who could pilot the Cat Car for Kids in the IWK 250. But before we get to it, just listen to this for a second and tell me you haven't missed it. You're about to hear it again in about a month. Oh, how I have missed the sound of the roaring V8s. We're almost there. I can't wait. But before we hear the V8s roaring again on the track, let's get started with our first conversation with Russell Smith Jr. Well, tonight we're lucky to have a few minutes with the driver of the number 88 from Lakeside, Nova Scotia, Russell Smith Jr. Russell, how are you doing tonight?
Not too bad. Thanks for having me.
Despite the weather, we're taping this today on April 4th, and wet snow. Nobody needs it right now. We're going racing in a month and a half. We need to get rid of this.
No, I definitely agree. Traveling back and forth to Antigonish the last few weekends, it was looking good to get on the track very shortly. I'm hoping that this is here and gone ASAP so we can get some testing undergoing.
No kidding. So listen, you're from Lakeside, Nova Scotia. If my math is correct, is this your 12th season coming up on the tour?
I don't think it's my 12th season on the tour. I think I've been on the tour for 3 full seasons and then part-time through a few different years.
Okay, but if we patch it all up, you've probably taken part in at least one race a year over that time span. Does that make sense? At least one.
Yeah, I can't remember which year it was I started, but at least one race per year.
And you've done well. I mean, as of the end of 2023, well over 20 top tens, well over a dozen top fives, and a couple second places. Last year, you finished third in the IWK 250, second in PEI, in what, many people say is one of the more exciting finishes in Tour history. I mean, a little bit of contact coming into turn two, and Jarrett Butcher sneaks by and you follow him. He takes the checkered flag and you're right behind him. Consistent year last year for you. I mean, you finished third in the championship. What's it going to take to do even better this year?
We just, you know what, our I's got to be dotted, T's got to be crossed, and we're close there a couple times last year. Just stupid mistakes like down Riverside. I believe we had a caution, and I chose the inside. We took green, and I actually got by Mike Rogers, and I think Ryan Vanderscott got into Donald, caused another caution, and then the second time I wasn't as smart. Mike actually outsmarted me on the restart, pinched me down, and let actually three guys got by me. And then the time the race was over, I just got back to the back of Mike Rogers. But we had a really good car that day, just pacing myself, and I learned last year to try to pace myself. You know what? You don't got to lead every lap. You just got to lead the last lap. It's the only one that counts. You look at Slom White, and that's what he does.
Absolutely. I mean, last year, again, let's take the IWK 250 for example. I mean, Hocevar led 207 of the 250 laps, but like you said, doesn't matter if you lead 207 if you don't lead the last one. So definitely some consistency on your end. If you just get a little bit of luck this year, I mean, if you've listened to the conversation I had with Craig in the last episode, both bet that your first win is coming this year. So with a little bit of luck, I think this is it, man. The consistency's there. Like you said, you have a good car. You've got the experience behind you now. I think it's coming this year.
I believe so too myself. We've been working really, really hard on this new car, which Donald ran last year, and I believe to myself that it's going to be a better car. And like I say, we just got to make it last through the whole race, which we're working hard on that part. And yeah, I believe it's coming, and I believe our best track is probably going to be Riverside, even though PEI has been pretty good to me every time we went there.
It has. Last year, the seas parted for Jarrett and yourself to take the lead with about 37 laps to go there at the end. But you have done well there consistently. Like you said, PI's been good to you, Riverside as well. Um, is there a track that you've got circled on your calendar for this year where you really want to improve at or try to learn more?
I'm pretty confident on all tracks that I go to. 660 is probably the lowest one for me, but hey, we finished fifth there last year, and I ran sportsman car there years ago and seemed to be pretty good in it up there. So I don't know, it's just a driving style thing. I find myself at the beginning of the race, I might not be up top, like up to par, but through the race, the longer I go, I find the better I get.
So for a guy like you, long green flag runs are your friend then.
Long green flag runs are usually my friend, and yeah.
You definitely, you've shown that you can cut your way through the field on these long runs, and I don't expect to see anything different next year. I think what will be a little bit different next year is that Craig White has said that he does not intend on running full time. Um, does that do anything to, the goals that you might have set for yourself for this coming season?
Not really. You know what? Like you said, Jarrett come on really strong last year. He improved big time from the year before. Nicholas, he's been a contender every year since he's been in a race car. And Brian Naugle, he knows his stuff. He's working hard on his stuff just like we are. And same with Slom White. Um, it's too bad the Slom White's actually getting out of the tour and only going back to part-time, I feel that's a big fan base that the tour is going to lose. But hey, every weekend that he comes is going to be a good weekend. I enjoy racing all four of them guys.
Well, and also don't forget that he said in 2022 that he might not run full time, and then he said in 2023 that he might not run full time. So I don't think we've lost that fan base just yet.
Yeah, it's hard to say with him because I keep on bugging him about it, and he keeps on saying, "No, Rusty, I'm done. I gotta do other things and circle these other races." Which, hey, Oxford for him is circled. He wants to accomplish that. He didn't really have a good going the last time he was down there. I'm hoping for him to have a better one this time. I believe he got a little better car today than he had back then. He's a good driver. You know what? He's smooth. I feel me and him are exact same. Just pace our way and pick and choose which lanes. And I mean, you look at the cars. The cars are not tore up every week. We're usually pretty clean drivers.
Yeah, you are. And he's actually said the same thing of you. I asked him throughout his three championship years, he had different runners up every year, and you were the runner up in 22. And he said of you that, you were somebody that's honed their craft, that's a well respected racer on their own. He had a lot of praise for you. Talk me through in your years on the Maritime Pro Stock Tour, driving these Pro Stock cars, what kind of driver are you, and what do you think explains that you've done so consistently well?
Honestly, I don't know if I could actually explain it out. For some reason, we talk about it like me and Dad. Um, I don't know what it is. I always look way far ahead in a race car and seems to get me through a lot of accidents that I say many times, like, how's that guy get in that accident? But I don't know. I'm always focused so far ahead and not worried about my front bumper. It's the one ahead of me.
Right, yeah, good defensive driving. Look as far ahead as possible.
I agree on that.
So listen, this year a little bit of a different landscape with Craig not committing to racing full time again, but you've mentioned a couple names. I mean, Jarrett Butcher, as you said, breakout season last year, 3 wins, all at different tracks too. Nicholas Naugle, perennial contender on the tour, one of those guys that gets lost to seat time down south as well during the off season up here. Veterans like Greg Proud, like Mike Rogers. What's it going to take to keep competing with this pack next year?
I think it's a lot of testing and a lot of upkeep. But once you find that sweet spot, I think it's going to get easier. Especially like you look at Jarrett last year, he won the first race of the year, I believe it was, and then it was just like momentum right after that.
That's a big part of it. I mean, racing, as with any other sport, there's a big mental component to it. There's a big momentum component to it. And part of that explains why I and a number of fans feel that you're gonna get a checkered flag this year. The momentum just feels like it's finally coming to a boil for you. I really think it's gonna happen. Now, stupid question, because of course the answer is I don't care. I'll take a win anywhere. But is there a track that would mean more to you to take your first win at?
Just what, Riverside would probably be the top. Anybody wants to win at Riverside. The facility it's the top facility in all Eastern Canada, and might even be all across Canada. The track is it's phenomenal. Every time you go there, it's a very welcoming track. Not that others ain't. It's just the facility makes the racing that much better. And other than that, my second place would be Scotia, but it would be Scotia mostly for Donald, not ever really winning a race there.
Right. I mean, and that's one that I could see why that would mean a lot. Obviously, connection with Donald Chisholm there when you mentioned Donald. But of course, you take you take any one of them. Um, This year, some exciting things for the tour. I mean, June 29th at Riverside, NASCAR Canada is coming up. The Pinty's Series, as it used to be called. It'll be neat to be on a program with these guys. What do you think about that?
I think it's great. I think it's going to be an awesome weekend. I wish I was more of a drinker, but I can't seem to keep the alcohol down, so I don't drink it too much at all.
Hey, that's all right, because you do a lot of driving on that track, so that's fine.
No, that's right. But yeah, no, it's going to be a big party weekend. I will say that. It'd be like the IWK. When them guys do stuff down there, it's right to the top. Like I say, it's just the best facility all the way around. They put so much effort into it.
And when it's all said and done at the end of 2024, let's fast forward a few months. When you sit down in a rocking chair and think back about the season that's about to start, when it's all over, what's it going to take for you to consider the season a success?
A success for me right now is just to get that win. That's my ultimate goal, is a win. I was never a points guy to follow the points. They seem to follow themselves. Like you said, consistency. It don't matter. You don't actually have to win a race all year long if the guy that is up top winning, like a guy could win 3 races, like Jarrett, and Slalom Weight win one, and Slalom Weight still gets the title. It's just consistency to get you the points. But I'm leaning on that win. I want that win really bad.
Well, consistency, patience. Like you said, you have a particular affinity with a track like Riverside, like Oyster Bed. I mean, we only go to Oyster Bed once a year, so I'm sure that would be a special win if it happened to be that one. We're going to Riverside, I think, 3 times this year. I think it was 4 last year, but down to 3 this year. So you'll definitely have plenty of opportunities there as well. Listen, Russ, we'll wish you all the best. I know it's coming for you, and we'll be there with you at a party in Victory Lane. I'm not going to say if, but when it happens.
I hope so.
All right, listen, thanks for your time, Russ. Here's a little introduction with Russell Smith Jr., driver in the number 88 Nova Racing Machine from Lakeside, Nova Scotia. Thanks for your time tonight, Russell.
Thank you.
Moving right along from the number 88 to discovering the number 08 from Nicholas Naugle, the Brycon construction machine from Dartmouth, Nova Scotia. Well, here we are tonight with another contender on the Maritime Pro Stock Tour. Nicholas Naugle, pilot of the '08 Brycon construction machine. Nick, how's it going tonight?
Good. Thank you very much for having us on the show tonight.
Well, listen, my pleasure. As I was just explaining to you, the podcast is something we've just put together for this year, and we're doing a little episode on the contenders that are coming up for this upcoming season. So glad to be able to spend a few minutes with you tonight. Do you realize we're dropping the green flag in like a month and a half up here for the Maritime Pro Stock Tour? Has that sunk in yet?
Yeah, I feel like we just ended, and with all the stuff we were doing down south this winter, it never really did end. So it's kind of creeping up real quick on us that the tour's starting back up again, but I'm definitely looking forward to it.
Well, I was just gonna say, normally I would ask you how your off season was, but you're one of those guys that seemingly doesn't get an off season. I think you've been going. I watched you in the Snowflake in Pensacola, World Series of Asphalt, lots of racing down in the States. How does all that seat time help you hone your craft as a race car driver?
Yeah, I'm definitely lucky to get the opportunity to never truly be out of the seat. That's the way I see it. It's while everyone else is sitting at home and getting their cars ready and doing what they have to on that side of the prep, I never really uh, find that I get too much time out of the seat where I ever feel, oh, I'm getting back in. Oh, this is great. Whereas right now, it feels like every time I sit down, okay, here's another race. Here, we're going to another race. We're doing this, we're doing that. And I truly do feel that it keeps me sharp, gives me a bit of an edge where I don't have a learning curve when we get back to racing the tour at home. It's just another week on the schedule, and we keep rolling and we keep putting the effort in that we always have, and definitely look forward to it.
So, what's your schedule like these days? Are you getting any time off before you come home to start the Pro Stock Tour season?
So when the season ended last year, we took about a month, started stripping cars, and then I began my season down here. I ran a handful of races with Jet Motorsports just to kind of keep in the seat between the snowflake, and then got to run the Governor's Cup and a few other races like that in New Smyrna Speedway. At that point, we ran the Snowflake, attempted to run the Snowflake. Unfortunately, that was cut short due to motor issues, but it happens. And then we get that break that I don't think is really chosen. It's more mandatory between Christmas and New Year's, where there is no racing going on. Uh, and then about late January, we get started again. In that brief off period, we try and make sure the cars are ready. We always try and go down and run New Smyrna World Series of Asphalt and get to do those races. My whole crew looks forward to that. So do I. It's a great time. That's probably one of the best weeks of racing you can do because you get to run day after day and just fine tune your car at the same track night after night. And if last night wasn't that good, well, you just make a tweak and change a little bit and go again. And then after that, we usually try to run a race in the spring, and that brings us here. We're in hard push mode, getting cars ready for the tour, tearing them down, putting them back together, just making sure that everything's done that we need to do.
And you talked about the World Series of Asphalt. I mean, that's such a condensed schedule where you have the opportunity to get a lot of seat time in just a matter of days, really. There's racing going on every night. And if I'm not mistaken, you ran both a pro late and a super late down there?
Yeah, the last couple of times we've gone, you never want to show up there with one car. It's a very risky game to play because the track's so fast and so much can happen real quick that unfortunately your week can be cut short pretty easily. So our intent was just to bring our super down and have the spare chassis sitting there just in case. And then it was kind of like, well, why are we bringing a chassis without a motor in it? So we threw the pro motor in it, got it ready, and went down and focused on the super. But I did make a handful of pro starts and really just raced anything that I could. I was itching the first half of the week because we wanted to make sure we had two cars going into the ASA race. But once that was finished, it was game on, run whatever I want, and I was just itching to get in the pro car and race the rest of the week in it and had a ball.
Awesome. Well, Nick, for those who don't know you or want to get to know you a little bit more, maybe some new fans that are going to come and see a couple of Pro Stock Tour races this year, you're from Dartmouth, Nova Scotia, and you're one of the prime examples, I think, of somebody that's worked their way through the ranks from bandos to legends to Pro Stocks. And how many seasons is this going to be for you now on the Pro Stock Tour? I think you started in 2016.
Yeah, I have to work this one back. So back in 2012, I began my bando career. I was 14, real late getting into it. It was kind of one of those deals with me and my father. We had always went to the races, and I seen it and said I really would like to try this. And my father made me a deal. If I could save up half the money to buy a bando, we'd buy one and get into it. Well, I swept floors for a year and a half at work, making every penny that I could and saved it. And when I brought it, it was here, we're going to start this. So we ran 2 seasons in the bando, all at Scotia Speed World, few trips here and there around, once to Florida. And then at 16, we started racing legend cars for 2 years. Uh, did that very competitively, was very aggressive in them. We raced as much as we possibly could. There were some seasons we were running 40 races a year and had a lot of fun doing it. Met some really good people, got down here a lot and raced. And then I want to say when I was 18, so that would have been 2016. Yeah, I started on the Pro Stock Tour and we started making a few starts and kind of getting our feet wet. And then we went all in and started pushing from there. And that's been the career path that we've done since then.
Well, another solid season last year on the tour, finishing fourth in the championship points. You picked up 2 wins, back-to-back wins, nevertheless. Six top fives, and I think you were in the top 10 in every race but one. So definitely a competitive season again for you last year. You're always up there. I mean, when we talk about who's going to be competitive for this coming season, which I which I did extensively with Tim Terry last night as part of another segment on the show, your name always comes up. And we know that next year, Craig Sloan White won't be running full time. With knowing that, but also knowing that Jarrett Butcher had a breakout season. He won 3 times. He's got the confidence. Guys like Russell Smith Jr. that are always competitive on the tour. And then you add the Greg Prouds, the Mike Rogers, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. What's it going to take to keep the '08 out front this year?
I think as long as we continue down the path we're heading, I'm pretty confident that we'll be competitive most of the season. The unfortunate part in past seasons, it always seems you make a good run and then something happens and then you chase it the rest of the season. And that was the unfortunate part with us last year.
Right.
And we figured it out at the end of the season and started to come back, and I was happy. But I know like it's me, my father, and a bunch of our friends. That's it. We're not a big team. We're not racing out of these big shops and getting all this information fed to us. Which truly whatever we can figure out. And I believe that's what makes us so competitive, because it is me and my father just trying to figure this stuff out. And once we get onto it, no one's going to take that from us. It's our information, it's our thoughts, and it's what makes us the team that we are. I couldn't have been paired with better people. I couldn't ask for a better crew chief. Like, my father is one of the smartest mans in the sport, in my opinion. And like I say, I'm lucky to have the opportunity that I do, and the way we work together, I couldn't do it with anyone else. So I believe that that's why we will continue to be competitive.
So am I guessing correctly then that it's going to be same crew, same car for you this year?
Yep. We're going to continue running our Fury program. I've been loving those chassis since I've got into them. They're very responsive, and it's just kind of our own animal. We do our own thing, and whatever we figure out is great. And it's all the same guys. They come help me in the shop. They come help me every weekend. They dedicate their time. It's all volunteer work, and I can't thank them enough for that.
So, what's your goal for this upcoming season on the tour, knowing what we know, knowing what the circumstances are starting to shape up like? What's your goal for this year?
Everyone wants to say that they're going to go out and compete for a championship, but my mentality on that's always been I don't like grouping the whole season into this just big box, and you can have a very good season but not win the championship and look back and go, well, we didn't do it. Well, I don't like that. We go to every race with the exact same mindset that it's a race. We want to win the race. That is the only option, and that is our goal. I'm not ever looking at the big picture at the end. I'm not points racing. I don't want to do anything. I want to go out there and try and win every race we attend. And at the end of the season, if it works out and we get a championship, great. I'd love that. My guys would love that. They deserve it for the amount of hard work that's put into this. But at the end of the day, we're going to go run as many races as we can this season, have a blast doing it, enjoy it, and truly just try and chase trophies.
And any particular dates you've got circled on your calendar for this year? I mean, maybe a place that you historically maybe haven't done as well as you'd like, and you'd like to finally, get it done there, or maybe any of the big races that we've got coming up on the tour this year. What dates have you got circled so far?
Yeah, especially after last season, I'm really looking forward to the IWK 250, and I'm looking forward to the Cat 250, or the Summer Clash 250 now.
Yes.
And I truly feel both those races last year, we were in contention to win at the end, and something happened. Someone happened. It was taken from us both times. We had the opportunity. We were right there, but we just couldn't make it happen. So I'm really looking forward to show up this year and bring cars that are very competitive.
And so, we know that you'll be running full time on the tour this year, chasing trophies, as you said. Anything else on your schedule for the summer other than being full time on the Pro Stock Tour?
So we've committed to being full time on the Pro Stock Tour. Those are for certain dates, but at the end of the day, we're short track racers, and if you give us an off weekend, we're probably going to go find a race. There's no doubt in my mind. we're going to try and do as much racing as we can this season without jeopardizing the tour. That is the plan.
And well, there's like a month break in June or July. So, I know you'll be looking for something to do during that month. So you'll probably be at the track once or twice or maybe 4 weeks.
Yeah, I can't say I'm much of a boat person or hanging out and sitting around or anything like that. So I'll definitely still be in the shop every day and getting the car ready and seeing where we can go race. I'll definitely be trying to find more races to do that month.
And who's making this all possible for you, Nick? I mean, obviously, we know Brycon Construction is a huge partner of yours, has been for years and always will be. Who else is making this possible for you?
I mean, first and foremost, it's my father, my mother, my girlfriend, and my guys. Like they're the reason I do this every week. They come and support me. Without them, I couldn't race. It's not a driver sport. It's a team oriented sport, and I think people got to remember that when I win or lose, we win or lose. It's not me. It's us. But on the sponsor side of it, I got to thank all of them. I got to thank Brycon Construction, Mobile One, Conway Customs, McDonald Automotive, Celtic Air Services, and Wing Up Productions. I mean, they're guys behind the scene that you guys probably don't get to meet as often, but they're the reason that I get to go and race, and they help us out in any way they can. And I love working with them. I love doing what I can to help those guys out, and anything to make us just a bigger group. To be honest, like if you ever get the chance to meet any of these guys and people, go up, shake their hands, and just thank them for what they do.
Oh, I will. And I'll see you at the track every single weekend or every single race this year on the Maritime Pro Stock Tour. Hopefully I'll see you on Victory Circle.
Yeah, that's the hope, at least. I'm not going to say it's the plan, but that's what we're aiming for every week.
All right, Nick, thanks for your time tonight. I think we've gotten an opportunity to get to know you a little better. Come on out to the races. Tickets are already on sale for the Kenny-Upel 150 on May 18th. MaritimeProStockTour.com is where you can get that. Nicholas Naugle, thanks for your time tonight, buddy.
Thank you very much.
Last but not least, somebody that's going to be coming into the 2024 season with a lot of momentum after picking up 3 wins on the tour last year, the 54 from Porters Lake, Nova Scotia. Here's my conversation with Jarrett Butcher. And today we're talking contenders on the Maritime Pro Stock Tour. We've talked to Russell Smith Jr., we've talked to Nicholas Naugle. Today it's Jarrett Butcher's turn. Jarrett, how you doing?
Good, how are you?
Not too bad, thanks. Jarrett Butcher, driver of the number 54 from Porters Lake, Nova Scotia. It's kind of funny because we're both doing this on our respective lunch breaks right now. I told him this should be on video because he's got the Atlantic tilt load gear on and everything. But we'll have to deal with just the audio for our podcast listeners. So listen, normally I'd start by asking you how your off season was, but I kind of put you in the same category as Nick. Guys that don't have an off season. You've already been going, obviously, tracing it back to Snowball Derby activities in Pensacola last December, just raced at Hickory last month. You've already gotten some seat time under your belt this year. As we sit here, it's April 5th. We're waving the green flag in 45 days for the Maritime Pro Stock Tour. How do you feel about it?
I'm looking forward to it. I have a lot of confidence going into this year. Hickory didn't go as well as we'd like to. Had a hiccup there, and some mistakes were made, and it just wasn't a good start to the year. But going into we're gonna do Scotia for the first race and do the full series. So I think we'll have a good shot at the championship.
Well, listen, I mean, you said it coming into the year with a lot of confidence because let's face it, you had a breakout year last year. Won the series season opener at Scotia Speed World and then took 2 more wins after that. Great finish in PEI where you took a win there. I like to say after the seas parted for you, some contact in front, you snuck through. Russie followed you for a second. That was an exciting finish. As I said, a total of 3 checkered flags last year, finished second in the championship. Let's take a step back. What was your mindset going into 2023? And Did something feel different? Did you have any hints that you might be on the verge of a breakout season?
I don't say I was on the verge of a breakout season. I probably had it in my head that it needed to be a breakout season. When I came into the pro stock racing world, it was I was legend cars and bandos, and I had success in that as long as my brother, same with my brother and Dylan Blankhorn, all those guys. We had success in that, and then we got into the pro stock, and it it was a hard couple of years. A lot of it was self-induced on not winning, a first race or being in the spot to win a race, and there's a lot of days that I second guessed myself. So going into this season, Cole moving away, so I knew I had to step my game up a lot. I was, to be honest with you, I was probably a little lazy in years past. I relied on Cole a lot. Not that he didn't try to help me, but same time he's there to win a race too. So I probably wasn't as I didn't have the work ethic like I needed to, and Cole moving away, it showed that hey, I need to do this if I want to continue to race, and if I want to have the confidence in myself to race. If I didn't have a breakout season, I don't know if we'd be sitting here talking about me racing this year coming, to be honest with you. But I put my head down, and we went to work. Did North Wilkesboro the like couple days before the season opener. We didn't qualify, so when I had that feeling in my head there, I said I don't want to feel that again, and that kind of made me push harder for the season to get that first win, and then bring home two other wins with it.
Yeah, I mean, interesting that you mentioned not having qualified at North Wilkesboro just before the start of the season, because you could have had the opposite mindset easily, just to say, well, we're off to a bad start, probably going to be a shitty season, not looking forward to it. But you definitely use that as an opportunity to turn it around, and it ended up being a breakout season for you, as you said. After it was all said and done, did you have time to reflect on 2023 as a whole? And do you think that, what do you think made the difference? What do you think explains that you had such a good year on the tour last year?
There's a couple things, a couple people that really helped. I matured a lot. I worked a lot harder at it than I ever had. I take that a lot of it. My brother moving away. Him moving away. I'm not saying. I wish he moved back so I could race against him. But at the same time, him moving away, made me, step up my game, and it made me realize how much work he actually put into it. Because there's a lot of stuff behind the scenes that you got to do. Whether it's just you know, making sure you have your rims at the track or nitrogen or any of that, like just little stuff that you don't think of through the week. But that stuff really, I had to work, make sure I had all that stuff in line. I mean, that's the little stuff that makes you win races. Just having all the boxes checked, regardless if it's, having stuff to go to the track or having your setup right to go to the track. It's all that little stuff. And other stuff, I had Craig Langell as a spotter this year, or last year, I should say. He spotted for Cole before, and he spotted for Dylan Blankhorn past times. Sean Turple, I would have to say he's probably one of the best, if not the best spotter in the Maritimes. And so I give a lot of credit to him. Basically every interview I did last year, whether it was winning the race or people ask me what my success was, I give a lot of credit to him because he's very he's good at what he does, and he's very good at keeping the driver calm, or giving them the information he needs. So I give a lot of credit to him on the on-track success. And I had a great crew. A lot of my brother's crew and some of my crew, we kind of mixed it together, and they had the confidence in me, and we all worked really well together.
And you mentioned the importance of attention to detail, the importance of committing, the work ethic. Do you think that all of the seat time that you get down south, whether I think specifically back to the Snowflake last year, the past races that you've competed in, all that stuff, do you think that contributes to honing your skills as a race car driver, and it shows in the results you get up here?
I think so, 100%. Previous to last year, I didn't set my car up by myself completely. A lot of it was Cole. putting, understanding the car a lot more. If you can understand the car while you're driving the car, then you have a better feel. You have a better attention to detail in the car, so you can tell them what you need to make the car better. That was a huge big deal. And if I had to give any advice to anybody, that would be it. Is you got to work at it, and the more you know, the better you will be on track.
And along with that goes you thinking about some goals for this year, right? You said, like, now that you've worked on the car yourself, you understand the feel, you understand what sort of feedback you need to relay to your team. So having said all of that, what's your goal for the 2024 season on the Pro Stock Tour?
Win races, win championships, or championship, I should say. I really want to win a 250. I don't care what 250. I mean, Anaconish is the top one, mainly because that's the one my brother hasn't won yet. I know he hasn't won Fredericton, but can't go there this year. I have a wedding to be in. But I want to win all the 250s, but the IWK is probably one of the top ones right now. Mike's, the race my parents sponsor, that's a big race, home track, and then the Mike Stevens race. I was so close last year to winning that race. Half a lap, 1 lap, whatever you want to call it, was the difference of me not winning it, or even a caution 8 laps before that. There's so many things you can talk about that played into factors of not winning races, but the main goal is a 250 and a championship.
And it sounds like you've got a lot of things figured out last year in terms of sort of just your own program, your own routine, your own work ethic. What do you think it's going to take to keep the 54 out front this year? I mean, you're still going to have some stiff competition. Craig Sloan-White doesn't intend to run full time this year, but he'll be there. I can almost bet you probably more often than not. Guys like Nicholas Naugle, Mike Rogers, Greg Proud, all of these guys are going to be hungry. We know Russie's going to be hungry, and he's on the verge of his first win. Craig Slonwood and I both bet that he was going to take his first win this year. Having said all that, what's it going to take to stay ahead of all those guys this year?
The big thing is putting your head down and going to work, and understanding when you're in the race, you don't figure this part out till you're in the race. But I mean, you show up at the racetrack and you have a really fast car, your mindset's there to go win. But, if you go out there and your car is not as good, or if you get into a mess, okay, and this is why I struggled out last year, is, okay, well, I'm not going to win this race today, or my car is beat up, so I got to bring it back a little bit and look at the big day, big points day. I'm not a fan of points racing, but there's probably 3 races at least last year that made the difference of me possibly, I don't know if I say win the championship, because you don't know, but probably made my chances a lot bigger. From maybe it was like a 54, 52 point gap to maybe a difference of a finish at the final race of the year. Those are your big things you got to really realize. And that the long days that I put in the race shop, or the days I won races, or the days I should have won. Should have won or had the potential to win races. That was a big difference.
A big difference, and a big difference in you just mentioned the importance of consistency, I think is what you're getting at. If you're going to take a points championship, I mean, last year our points champion won 1 race. You won 3 races. But again, it just goes to show that, like you said, if something happens, if you're not, you get involved in an incident, whatever it is, you've just got to have the mindset to say, all right, let's put our head down, let's dig in, and let's try to get a good finish, because on this tour, championships are won with consistency, not necessarily the number of checkered flags at the end of the year.
100%. I mean, you look at Craig, yeah, he only won 1 race. I mean, it was a huge race to win, but at the same time, there wasn't too many races he didn't finish outside top 5, maybe even top 3. And those big races are the races that you lose or gain your most points. I mean, IWK 250. We had a chance. I think we had a winning car there, but at the end of the day, we were going for 2nd or 3rd place, and I get a little too over aggressive, and me and Carson got together. And I ended up going to the back. I mean, there's a big points that could be, 20 points right there. The Cat 250, or the Summer Clash 250, I say, I wasn't have the best car there, and I should have settled with probably a 5th place, 6th finish, and ended up 10th or 11th. I mean, those 2 races right there alone make up a big difference. And then, another thing is you got to keep your head on straight. If someone gets into you, someone rounds you up a little bit, you gotta reel yourself in and calm yourself down. It was right up to this year, I was notorious for friggin' getting wound up in the car, losing my patience, and probably taking a top 3 car or top 5 car, and making it a 10th or 12th place car with beat up body panels. And at the end of the day, you're not getting anywhere besides the back of the pack and long hours in the race shop.
Yeah, that's right. And, like you said, nobody wants that because that's more work for the team at the end of the day. Speaking of teams, same car for you this year?
Same team. One new car this year, and then one same car as last year. You guys had Gage Gilby on there last night. He bought one of our cars. It was a car that I won with in PEI, and every time I think last year except one I had a top 3. So we're looking forward to it. Same car I won at Scotia. Then a brand new car it's new, but it's old at the same time. We've had it for about two or 3 years now, and it's finally going to see a racetrack. So looking forward to that. And same team, all the same crew. They're great guys, and they had a lot of success for Cole, and we're slowly getting that success with me.
Well, speaking of Cole, I think you're going to get the chance to race him at least once this summer. He's going to be up for the Summer Clash 250. Maybe, we'll be lucky enough to see him at another race or two. But when's the last time the two of you were on the same track together? That's
a solid question. I want to say back at Scotia or the Mike Stevens race. I don't know what one ended the season, but it was one of those 2 races there. I'm pretty sure he won both of them, to be honest with you. So I'm looking forward to get back on track. I hope it's more than once this year, to be honest with you. But I'm looking forward to it, and knocking him off his pedestal a little bit, bringing him back down to reality a little bit. He's a good racer, great racer, and he's very successful. It shows the numbers don't lie. But I'd love for him to race back here and go out, beat him. He can finish second to me all day. That would probably make my day more than winning the race, honestly.
There you go.
But I think it'll be fun. It'll be awesome to have him back here. I think Mom and Dad would enjoy it. Dad gets stressed when we're both on track at the same time, but I think in some ways he probably misses it.
Yeah, I think Mom and Dad are going to be hoping you don't get into each other.
Yeah, there's been those times, and Dad tries to not say too much on the radio when it comes to that part, but then he'll try to reel us in at the same time.
Awesome. Listen, Jarrett, best of luck to you this season. Before I let you go, anybody you want to thank that helps make this possible for you?
I want to thank my mom, dad, my brother. He helps me all the time. Pixie, Tyler Hawes, Joel, David, Kirk, Craig Langell, Joe, Steve. There's a lot of people. I could go on for probably another 20 or 30 names if I wanted to. Everybody helps me a ton. But I just want to say thank you to all of them.
Well, listen, and thank you, Jarrett, for taking some time to talk to us today. As part of this episode, when you listen to it, you'll see that Tim Terry and I sat down and made some season predictions for this year. And we talked about you a lot. We hope for good things for you. We think your time has come. You're ready to take a lot of checkered flag this year, and we wish you all the best for this season, my friend.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Jarrett. So on tonight's show, we've heard from 3 of our contenders for the 2024 season. Russell Smith Jr., the number 88 from Lakeside, Nova Scotia, Nicholas Naugle, the 08 from Dartmouth, Nova Scotia, and Jarrett Butcher from Porters Lake. These 3 guys have been near the top of the standings over the past 3 or 4 seasons, if not more than that. What does that mean for the 2024 season? who better to match this up with than the one and only Tim Terry? Tim is a familiar voice to race fans across Atlantic Canada. He's been calling races, covering motorsports in the Maritimes for almost 20 years now. Love spending some time with him tonight, mashing all this up. Here's my conversation with Tim Terry. Well, ladies and gentlemen, as promised, we are here tonight with the one and only Tim Terry, timscorner.ca, of course. Tim, the voice of the Maritime Pro Stock Tour for the last 17 seasons, Tim?
Depending how far you want to count. My first full race was 2008. I've been with the series since 2007, so this is year 18 for me.
All right, well, thanks for joining us on the podcast, Tim. We're going to have a little fun tonight and go over some highlights from last year, just kind of set the table for 2024. And then you and I are going to make some predictions that undoubtedly will not come true for next year. But listen, they're fun. And we're also going to get into, last but not least, the IWK Cat Car for Kids for the IWK 250. I mean, always interesting to see what kind of driver the series can round up for that one. Last year, obviously, Carson Hocevar joined us, but so many NASCAR greats have come here and enjoyed it.
There's been a few that have come. Obviously, Mark Martin is one of them that sticks out to us, but we'll talk about that in a bit and try to spitball some ideas at what could be coming for that or any other tour race.
For sure. So listen, let's start with last year. 2023, obviously, Craig Sonwhite, the 99 from Terrence Bay, Nova Scotia, our first three-time consecutive series champion for 2021, 2022, and 2023. Led a lot of laps in 2023, but only took one checkered flag, but it was a big one. It was one that he'd had on his bucket list for a long time, and it finally came last year, and it came with 3 straight championships. So far, we know this. We know that he is registered for the 2024 season. He has said he will not run full-time. What are your thoughts on Craig for next year? Where do you see this going?
He toyed with it last year, and every interview that we've done, he said, hey, I didn't want to go for the third one, but the team kind of, pushed me in that way, and I kind of wanted to top John Fleming's mark and, put my name in the likes of John Fleming and Wayne Smith as multi-time champions of this series and being right up there as one of the leaders when it comes to maritime touring championships. Obviously, Greg Seward and others in the NASCAR era have a few more as well. But now that he's got his 3, he's got other things in his life too. Life happens. This racing thing will always be there when everything rolls along. So Craig's got some other things. He's got some other dreams. He wants to run the Oxford 250 and make it into that race. And in order to do that, you have to go fully prepared. So there might be an extra trip to Oxford in the mix for a pass race or something before the 250 itself. Is he going to come full time? The answer is looking like no. Is he going to be there more often than not? Probably yes. You can take the racing out of the guy. You can't take the guy out of racing, vice versa, whatever. So do we see him at the Kenny Upel 150? I don't know yet. We'll wait and see what the 99 team does bring to the racetrack when it does come to the racetrack. Wouldn't surprise me to see him at that first one and maybe that first one at Riverside.
Well, I'll tell you what, I mean, as far as Craig is concerned, like you said, he wanted to win one, and then he said he wouldn't do it again. And then he won 2, and he said he wouldn't do it again. Even if he doesn't run full time, I mean, it's still mathematically possible for him to take a 4th in a row. My personal opinion on this is if we see him on May 18th and he does well, and he shows up to a couple more races and does well, it won't take long for him to realize, I think, well, maybe a couple more races I do well, maybe I lock this thing up. So even though he may not run full time, it's still mathematically possible for him to take a 4th in a row.
It's mathematically possible. Is it realistically possible? Probably not with the competition that we do have. I asked Craig at the RV show, I said, so let's theoretically, you go to the Kenny Upel 150 and you win it. Do you go to Gary? Yeah, well, we'll cross the bridge when we get there. It's a week in between. If we're still fired up after a win at the first race, we can do that, but let's not put the cart ahead of the horse, because there is some stiff competition in this series, and there's a lot of drivers and teams that are going to be going for this championship this year. Some of them are going to be on different agendas. Some of them are going to be part-time. Some of them are going to run full-time with us. Craig had consistency, and I'm sure we'll talk about this when we look at 2024 favorites and looking forward, but Craig, the last 3 years, has been consistent. That team has pretty much been bulletproof, except for the 250 2 years ago where he had those motor issues. He has been there at the front, somewhere in the top 3 and the top 5 at the end of the race, and that's what you've got to do to win championships, and he's proved it the last 3 years.
He has, and somebody that's proven something this past year, Jarrett Butcher. What a breakout season for him after 62 starts of not winning a race on the Maritime Pro Stock Tour right out of the gate. And you could tell just from that very first heat race of that season opener last year, door to door with Greg Proud the whole way for the heat race. And I think getting that first win of his career on the tour out of the way early last year, that's what he needed to really get the confidence going for the rest of the year. And we saw him take 2 more checkered flags. So another highlight obviously was a breakout season from Jarrett Butcher last year.
And it goes down to consistency at the end of the day. Jarrett won at 3 different racetracks, which I think is the biggest thing we can state, that he won at Scotia. He won at Prince Edward Island when the Island boys kind of let him have an opportunity at the end of that one to pick up that win, and he won one at Riverside. So 3 wins, 3 different racetracks, first 3 wins of his career. That was really a breakout season for Jarrett Butcher. The only Achilles heel was really Gary, where he came out of the box in practice and put it in the beach in turn number 3, and they had a good comeback. They rebounded nicely, but to come out of the box like they did at Gary after that win was kind of the role reversal compared to where they were a week ago in Halifax. But I'm looking for strong things out of Jarrett Butcher this year. Was consistent last year, just not consistent enough to beat the 99 car. And I think he's going to be the one that's on the radar as the one to beat when it comes down to the end of it at the Tirecraft 200 at Scotia.
Yeah, I spoke to Craig a few weeks ago for our lengthy piece in episode 2 of the podcast. And, I asked him, for each one of your championships, you had a different runner-up. And, tell me what makes these guys so good. And when it comes to Jarrett Butcher, he said, listen, I think it really, when Cole moved down south and made the change to go racing down south as much as possible, Jarrett was left with the team here up in Nova Scotia, and he had to really become a lot more hands-on with the car, a lot more hands-on with the team, and just a lot more present all around. And Craig attributed that to a large part of Jarrett's success. So really, we don't have any reason to expect anything different out of the 54 team next year.
A status quo. Cole is down south doing his thing. We hope to see him for a race or two, July, August, when everything comes to be. But Jarrett really stepped up and put his game out there. And as Ann, I think, said at Oyster Bed in Victory Lane, there's no more shadow. He is the guy that is holding this team together in Nova Scotia. We've seen him from Bandoleros on the way up. He's a hell of a driver. He knows how to get around these racetracks. Some of those racetracks aren't as strong as others, but you can say that for any driver on any series. There's always going to be that 1 or 2 weak link in the chain, but I think Jarrett has something to watch out for as long as he can stay consistent and keep those runs up. The 54 being in the top 3 and the top 5 at every one of these races is going to be pivotal, especially in those big races like the Summer Clash 250 and the IWK 250. I think there's something big to watch out of that Atlantic Tilt Load Camp.
For sure. And you talked about the importance of consistency, Tim, when it comes to winning championships on this tour. And I think if there was such a thing as a Mr. Consistency Award over time, you got to talk about a guy like Russell Smith Jr. Is this the year that he gets his first win on the tour? Sure, to me, seems like this is going to be it.
There was a couple of close calls over the last couple of years, whether he was driving the 66 car for Darryl Marr back in the day or driving the 88 for Nova Racing and Donald Chisholm. And obviously he had his stint in his own race car as well. And they are coming loaded for bear to try to win a championship. For Nova Racing would be the first since Donald Chisholm a few years back, and try to win the first for Rusty, not only first race, but first championship as well. Race wins come with championship points. So they're going to try to get everything that they can. He and Nicholas Naugle back and forth last season for third in the championship. Same can probably be said for both, where they were both really strong. Rusty should have won a race at Riverside at the end of the season if it wasn't for a couple of late race cautions. You look at Nicholas Naugle, he's won a few races on this series, but like a guy like Jarrett and like a guy like Rusty, it just shows the competition where it takes you a little bit to win one of these races. You really have to lose one to learn how to win one. And Rusty has lost enough of them, has come close in enough of them, that once he wins, he's going to win a bunch. And I feel like it's going to be like Jarrett Butcher was last season, where Rusty wins one, he's probably going to be followed by 2 or 3 to come.
This week, I'm going to sit down with Rusty and really try to get a feel for how hungry he is, how hungry the team is. The level of commitment certainly seems to be there. As you know, you chatted with him at the RV show as well, and you got to think that first win is coming in 2024 for him and that team.
Obviously, Scotia Speedway being the home racetrack, Riverside Speedway being the home racetrack for the team. They run well at both racetracks. Rusty has run really well at Oyster Bend Speedway, and that's one of those racetracks where we only go once. And if you ask Craig Slonwhite what's left on his bucket list near the top is win at Oyster Bend Speedway, because he hasn't won there before. Jarrett was able to get that win there this year. We only go once. It's one of those wins that is very valuable. Him and Greg Proud put on a battle here a couple of years ago for that race win over on the island. So wouldn't surprise me if they, and that team typically runs well over there. Donald's got a win a few years ago in a dominant fashion at that racetrack. So you think of they don't have a ton of experience at Speedway 660 as a team and as a driver, but you never know what could happen on that second race of the season. And then Petty International Raceway, he knows that track like the back of his hand. So experience, both crew and driver, is there. It's just a matter of when all those stars align and the door opens to victory lane.
Well, and hopefully that'll be this year. You really, you got to pull for a team and a guy like that. That's just, hardworking week in and week out. They deserve one. Hopefully they get it this year. Next on the list of let's talk about perennial contenders, Mr. Nicholas Naugle, the 08 Bricon construction car. If you keep your eyes at the top of the chart on any given weekend, unless they have problems, the 08's going to be there. And you if you think about Pro Stock Tour drivers as guys that enjoy the hobby, guys that can commit full time but aren't necessarily there to win, and then you have guys that eat, breathe, sleep racing. They want to be in a seat 24/7, 365. That's Nick Naugle. He races a lot down south as well, whether it's the Snowflake and the Prolate, the New Smyrna World Series of Asphalt. He does it all. And it seems like that team just never stops, and they always do well on the tour. With Craig running part-time, is this the year for the 08 of Nicholas Naugle, just like it could be for the 54 of Jarrett Butcher?
When you look back at the line score last year, Nicholas Naugle lit it up in the win column a couple of times, but that consistency was not there. And I think that's the only thing that he's missing. We mentioned the same thing with Russell Smith Jr. That's the only thing that is currently not there, and that is that consistency across 10 races, because you have to hit it every single race. Nick has the potential to win every single time he's on that racetrack. Himself, Brian, Connie, they added John Fleming to that team last year, which was really big when it comes to a Maritime Pro Stock Tour and maritime racing representative and knowing his stuff as a multi-time champion. So is this year for Nicholas Naugle? I hope so. But every team thinks the same thing going into the 10 race series. They run really well at Scotia. They run really well at Riverside. If they can get those 2 races in between race 2 and race 3 at 660 and Petty, and then they can set themselves up for a run that includes a lot of Scotia and Riverside at the very end, I think they will do very well for themselves. But you just have to get by that. And oh, by the way, show up for those big shows and try to close the deal on one of those big races, because I know Nick has been close. He's due for a big win like a 250. This could very well be the year.
Yes. So that was our championship top four from last year. Obviously, they're going to come up in our prediction conversation, but let's talk rookies. Last year, Jordan Vino took it in the 11V. We're going to have an interesting class of rookies coming into the tour this year. Some familiar faces committing to full-time schedule for the first time. Some completely, or not completely new, but some drivers making the jump from legends to the Pro Stock Tour. I'm talking about Gage Gilby, of course. Had the opportunity to work with the Butchers to get himself a seat for this year. And guys like him, guys like Colton Noble, Garth Bezanson. I think we've got an interesting rookie class to look forward to this year.
And I think if you look at the full-time guys, you add Tyler Haws to that list if he can put the 2 or 3 races together funding-wise that he needs to. You mentioned Garth Bezanson. Same situation, says he wants to run the full series. Still looking for that funding to make sure everything gets into line. Colton Noble, I'm sure we'll see him at the Scotia races. Gage Gilby, and the biggest news to come out here in the last couple of days is Sam Rogers is driving the 0 car. So you'll have him in a very potent race car, trying to get that team back to where it was when Sean Turple was driving. Matt Vaughn was catching on the last couple of seasons, but they decided to make a change. So you look at Sam Rogers and Gage Gilby, I think those two are I liken this back to the 2013 rookie year where you had Dylan Blankhorn and Cole Butcher, 2 really hot shoes coming out of legend cars, 2 well-prepared race cars, 2 great teams, and they're going head to head. Yes, you had Denver Ferran in that mix, and you had a couple of others that were a part of that rookie class as well. But when the chips were down at the end of the season, it was the 67 and the 53. I think when you look at it this year, it may be the 0 and the 25G because they are both good kids. They are both in well-prepared race cars, and they both paid their dues at Scotia Speed World and on the Maritime League of Legends Tour to get to where they are. They've run down south. They've done all that. Now it's time to get up into a pro late model and show what they have. Garth Bezanson, Tyler Haws, those guys that are there. Austin McDonald technically is not running for Rookie of the Year, but that's another full-time car that we're going to see this year that hasn't run full-time with us in a very long time. New places, new faces, new cars, everything in the mix there. It's going to be for an exciting season on the tour, and I think probably one of our best rookie battles. We've had some really good rookie battles in 17 and 18 when guys like Jarrett Butcher and Nicholas Naugle and Robbie McEwen and those guys were coming on the series. But I think when you look at big hype at the start of the season, I think you've got to look at this battle between Sam Rogers and Gage Gilby.
And speaking of just going over some highlights from last year, obviously Jordan taking the Rookie of the Year award. And the year before that, in 2022, it was Ryan Van Oerscott. Are we seeing these guys progressing for 2024 to consistent top 10s, maybe even top 5s?
Those 2 teams are 2 teams that are not really associated with those, your King competition and some of those teams that might have the knowledge that they would have to share amongst drivers and amongst teams. Ryan Van Oerscott, Jordan Vino, kind of doing it on their own. Obviously, Mike McKenzie helping out Jordan Vino, and Ryan's got some help from down the road and so on and so forth. Do they progress? Absolutely. Everybody progresses with seat time, but do they crack the nut to get into victory lane? We've seen some wild races on this series. We can see that they both qualify well. They both won heat races. They both started up front. It's just a matter of trying to make a driver and learn those skills and being able to get there for 150 laps. They're going to win races if they continue to be on the series. Those 2 are just those kind that are going to make it happen. But does it happen this year? Who really knows? And then you've got those drivers that are running for that championship. You've got a guy like the 89, whether it's Donnie or Donald or Danny, or you kind of mix them both up in between, and whoever else decides to hop in there too. You've got some really strong talent on this series that's going to be up there and try to win races. But love Ryan, love Jordan. They both proved themselves on the series. Looking forward to seeing what they can do in 24.
Another highlight for me from last year was Ashton Tucker. I mean, is somebody that we're very familiar with, has been, a great racer in his own right, but was just piling up the wins by the end of the season. Took the season closer on the Pro Stock Tour, took the season closer on the Super Late Model Series, and the Mike Stevens Memorial. Thank you very much. that guy's coming into 2024 with a lot of momentum. So in terms of highlights from last year, I think for me, his performance it speaks volumes to the kind of threat that the guy can be if he can commit to, more than 2 or 3 or 4 races on the Pro Stock Tour this year.
I would love to see a guy like Ashton Tucker and Ryan Messer, and maybe even a Corey Hall, commit to the first race in Halifax. And I say that just because race 2 is 660, race 3 is Petty International Raceway. Those guys are likely going to be at those races, at least Ashton Tucker and probably Ryan Messer. You commit to the first one in Halifax, you run those 3 races. And Brad Siliker Motorsports has done this before on the series. I think they did it back in 2019 or 2021, where they ran the first couple of races and they saw where they were and they weren't where they really wanted to be. So you kind of change the schedule a little bit. I'd love to see what Ashton Tucker can do at Scotia. We obviously know that he can win a race there. He won the season finale, closing the season off in dramatic fashion. But I'd love to see him to run the full schedule. 10 races is a lot. I know Brad Siliker and that team puts a really good piece underneath Ashton. Would love to see the first race because he's going to be at race 2. He's going to be in Fredericton. You think he's going to be at race 3. The Canada Day weekend at Riverside, you kind of prep for the IWK 250 because you're going to be there. That's half the season. So you look at the way the first 5 races pan out. If you're a team from New Brunswick, that would be something to look at to start off the season. But you got to come to May 18th. You got to come to the Kenny Upol 150, right?
Yeah, I mean, start that one, and especially if you do well in that one, then you go, all right, maybe we got something to build on here, and maybe we will make the trip to Riverside for not just the IWK 250, and maybe we will make the other trips to Scotia. So yeah, I mean, makes sense. Commit to the first one, Kenny Upol 150 at Scotia. Give yourself some momentum and see where it goes from there. I think last highlight for me from last year. Let's talk about most exciting race. Have you thought about, out of the exciting finish at PEI, seeing Sloan White beat Hocevar at Riverside? What was the most exciting race of last year for you, Tim?
All of them. That's easy to say, but you look at Craig Sloan White doing what he did to finally win that IWK 250 to close off the Maritime Triple Crown. Dylan Blankhorn coming from 2 laps down to win the Summer Clash 250 and not giving up after radio issues and axle issues and whatever else plagued that 67 car on that night. Jarrett Butcher's win at PEI, I think, kind of stands out to me because we kind of saw Jarrett kind of lurking in the weeds a little bit, top 2, make a little bit of contact. Jarrett passes him by and says thank you and goes to victory at one of the toughest racetracks to win on this series. Ryan Messer doing what he did in Fredericton last year against all of our guys that go up. And it was the first time we were there in a few years. Neat to see that as well. Ashton Tucker winning the last race of the season, the Tirecraft 200. That had a little bit of drama to it as well. There was a lot of really good races last season on the series. You look at Greg Proud and Nicholas Naugle for what they did at the last race at Riverside during the Modern Pumps 150. There's a lot of excitement to look back on. I don't know how they're going to try to raise the bar in 24, but they are definitely going to try, and we'll see what happens the first race out at the Kenny Upol 150.
Yeah, for sure. And for me, it was definitely the IWK 250. I mean, just seeing how dominant Carson Hocevar was from the first practice, crushed the heat race, started on pole, crushed, I think, 2/3 of the race in the lead or something like that. And then to see him just not save enough at the end and to see Craig make his way through was just a great finish with about 30 to go. And it was just great to see. And actually, and I told this to Craig when I spoke to him for our last feature on the last episode, I said, I put my sweater on, I got up to go to the bathroom, and then the place went crazy. And I turned around and there you were passing Hocevar. So for me, that was definitely it. What a great race that was. And I can't wait to go again this year. 2024. I mean, look, I still say next year, but it's like it's next month now.
Yeah.
It's next month. How did that happen?
Yeah.
Talk to the race teams. I'm sure they don't know either. But for this year, I mean, like I said, it's coming up next month. Today's April 1st. What are we going to see next year? I mean, we've talked about sort of, who the contenders might be, but let's nail some down here just for fun. I mean, for me, when it comes to the championship, I think it's going to be the 54. I think it's going to be hotly contested, but if he can start the season with a lot of momentum, not necessarily win the Kenny Upel 150, but do well, I think you'll see the 54 take his first championship. Write it down. I said it, and I'll probably be wrong, but at least it's on the record.
Yeah, it's tough to call a championship favorite. Without Craig there, I think it opens the door a little bit. I think the 54 and the 08 going into last year were the two that were going to challenge Craig Slonwhite, and I think that is up there as well. I think you add the 88 to that mix. You look down the list, who is going to be next. I honestly, if we're going to go off the board a little bit, I like the 13 car, Austin McDonald. If Austin runs really well in Fredericton, he traditionally runs well in Petty. And obviously, Riverside International Speedway, he's got some speed after being there the last couple of seasons and the part-time that he's done with us compared to the Cars Tour down south. I like the 13 car. I don't know if he's going to have the consistency through 10 to stay up there. Do I think he wins his first race this season? If we're going with predictions, I think you see the 13 car win a race. But I don't know if he's going to have those 10 races to put together, similar to what Nicholas's season was last year, where he wins a couple of races and is really strong in those races that he has. Just missed the mark in a couple of others. But I like those four. If we're going to go for championship favorites, I like those four. Obviously, if Ashton was to run the full season, he'd be up there. If the 89 was there the full season, I think you add them as a favorite as well. You've got four-ish, I think, on my radar that I like, plus a couple of more. And then you look at guys as dark horses that could contend. Mike Rogers had a very solid run in a couple of races last year, just didn't have the consistency. Stevie Lively's in a new-to-him car, a former Naugle car that he ran at the 200 last year. Mark Leclerc and Tyler Smith, yet to see the full schedule, but they say they're planning on committing to the full East Coast International Pro Stock Tour schedule between the pair. So we'll see them. Obviously, Gary Elliott will be back. Chris Hughes is going to run 6 or 7, and usually 6 or 7 for him comes into about 10. So we're going to hope that stays there with the ECI sponsorship on the 32 car this year. Haven't heard from Trevor Lamb what they're going to do with the 28 car. I think they're going to be here for most of the races as well. And then that would bring Tanton Woolridge into the mix. So Brad Eddy was strong in the couple of races he had last year. You know, list goes on and on of drivers that I think are going to be favorites. And then you get that rookie battle. But I think championship wise for me, there's 4 names at the start of the season that I like. I think Jarrett Butcher and Nicholas Naugle were the favorites last year along with Craig. I think they have to be there. I think with what they're putting behind Russie, he's got to be a favorite. And I think in the back of my mind, I'm thinking Austin McDonald contends for this title too.
No, couldn't agree more. I mean, I've got the same 4 names you have, and I mean, who knows, right? Like you said, if this guy runs the full schedule, who knows what can happen? If that guy, I mean, you know, you mentioned Tanton Woolridge. You know, if he's running full time this year, a lot of these run down to being at the right place at the right time. You never know when the right caution's going to come out. You never know how you're going to do in the pack of heat races that you're with. And if you start with good track position, you never know. So I think regardless of what happens, we've got an exciting championship on our hands for this year, and can't wait to see it all unfold.
Absolutely. And it's the part-time guys too that are going to give you a little bit of a show. You know, guys like the Reeds, we're going to see Greg Proud at some point, I'm sure, this season. You've got some, when we go to New Brunswick, when we go to 660, we're going to see some of those guys that either run part-time at 660 or on the super late series that are going to hop in and put on a show in those 2 New Brunswick races that we have back to back within 3 weeks of each other. So it's championships are going to be good, but I think we're going to see some highlight reel wins and races that we're going to be playing back for years on end.
Absolutely. Now to the fun stuff, and by the way, I should preface this by saying, complete speculation here. Tim or I, you know, obviously we're both affiliated with the tour, but we do not know who will drive the IWK Cat Car for Kids this year. This is pure speculation, but it's fun, so why not do it? And we might be right, we might not be right. And I threw some names your way with a little bit of explanation that goes along with each of them. And when I think about, of course, we have to talk scheduling. It probably is not going to be a full-time guy in any of NASCAR's 3 top series because I think it's Indy Road Course weekend that weekend for the IWK 250. So let's rule them out. The first guy on my list is one Ken Schrader. He ran NASCAR Pinties last year. They did a race on dirt. He came up for it. Of course, he schooled them and won the race. So he's been to Canada. We know he's always looking to race. He took part in that SRX championship that Tony Stewart and his friends had put together. Unfortunately, rest in peace for now, SRX championship. Who knows what'll happen? But just to say, a guy that's been to Canada, a big name that's is always looking to race, even though he's not the youngest pup out there anymore. So, thoughts on him?
He ran a tour race back in 2010 when we rained out at Scotia Speed World. He couldn't make the feature itself, but he's been here before. He's run a couple of races at Scotia, one being in a sportsman car for the Alexanders back in 2008, I believe it was, or 2009. But been here before, knows the series. Would be a great addition to any race on the East Coast International Pro Stock Tour. But I think when you look at you mentioned the schedule, NASCAR's top 3 are in Indianapolis, ARCA's in Indianapolis. So if you're looking at an up-and-coming name from there, and I think ASA is running that weekend too, or on that sort of time frame because Cole's not able to make the IWK 250. So it's back to the celebrity guest driver. You ask a lot of people, they asked me, who do you think number one? And you said it too. I don't know who it is until Joan Rui posted on Riverside's Facebook page and website, and I get it in the inbox to post on Tim's Corner. But you look at that race, could stand on its own without one of those drivers. It's always nice to have somebody come in and be that measuring stick. But you talk about a Ken Schrader. We had a Ricky Craven back in the past days. Somebody like that maybe is on the other side of their career that's going back and doing some short track stuff. You look at a guy like the SRX roster is a prime example of a place to start for that. You have Ryan Newman, Bobby Labonte. I don't know what their smart modified tour schedule looks like on that time frame or the wheel and mod schedule, but there's 2 names that have been thrown around by race fans saying that would be neat to have somebody else like that fresh out of the Cup Series, being a Ryan Newman and a guy like Bobby Labonte who's been around and done it, and those 2 names have never raced in the Maritime. So there's the other thing. You'd include a guy like a Ron Hornaday and a Terry Labonte and some of those guys that have raced here before. Is it long enough for them that they would sell some tickets at Riverside? Because ultimately that's what it does too at the end of the day. Who really knows?
Yeah, another guy on that list for me, why not Kevin Harvick? I mean, he's in the booth now, of course, on Fox, but I think by the time we get to July, I think that's going to be NBC's portion of the schedule, so maybe that frees him up. A guy that's obviously, he's one of those very recent retired guys from the Cup Series, and he's part owner of the Cars Tour with Dale Earnhardt Jr. and some of their buddies, and so he's got a tour to promote. He's also a sports agent. He's an agent to many drivers. Maybe it'd make 2 birds, 1 stone for him to come up here, do this, scout some talent, and maybe promote the Cars Tour a little bit. Who knows? Kevin Harvick is a name that's on my list for those reasons. Kurt Busch is another one. In an article published in August, he did mention that he was improving every day and he did intend to return to racing. Didn't have a timetable, but if he did race again, he said it would not be in NASCAR's Premier Series. So does he see an opportunity, something like this, to come up north, have some fun, have a seat in a pro late model again and have a go at it? That's another name. And last one for me, I'll let you have a couple more after that, but last one for me is probably a guy like Carl Edwards. Abruptly retired at the end of the 2016 season, consistently denied a desire to return to racing, but in recent appearance, he's always around the Cup garage, made a few appearances in the last few weeks, and Denny Hamlin has said that he's been talking to Edwards and he's not opposed to a return to racing and open to the idea of 23XI being his landing spot. So if that's not in the cards, is he looking to get back in a late model and maybe do something like this? So for me, again, pure speculation, but for me, it's guys like Schrader, Harvick, Kurt Busch, and Carl Edwards that, I mean, look, buy a lottery ticket on those because we don't know, but, that's my list.
Harvick would be neat because he can bring Keelan up, and obviously me coming from Winter Nationals and seeing how Keelan has progressed in a legend car, kind of be neat to see Keelan race on a Friday night and Kevin race on a Saturday. For a Legends guy that just came from Winter Nationals, I think I'd get more of a kick at a Keelan on Friday than the Saturday show. But it comes down to price tag. It comes down to the business of motorsports too. How many people are going to fit in seats for whoever decides to show up and adds to the show, the personality. We had Chocolate Myers a couple of years ago that didn't race a car, but sat with us in the booth and signed autographs and met fans and had a good time. And, if it comes down to that, maybe there's nobody in the car. Maybe there's somebody that's doing that sort of thing. We'll see what happens. I haven't heard any speculation. I haven't seen anything. I haven't asked the question to Riverside because I know the answer I'm going to get is going to be stay tuned. So that's kind of where I'm at. But we're all waiting. Carson Hocevar put on a great show last year and went on and is doing great things in the Cup Series with that next gen car and with Spire and everything that they are doing there. So I think it's got to be either an up and coming star from the short track world. Does it have the same impact as maybe one of those retired Cup guys? Probably not. But I think you had the same idea when Hocevar came in last year and then did what he did and showed the crowd that he has something in his back pocket. But we'll see. We'll see who it is. I mean, it has to bring that wow factor sort of thing. That race stands on its own. We're still going to have all those campers, the campsites sold out. We're going to have a jam-packed crowd. They're going to see a good show regardless who is in the cat car for kids or not. Who knows? We'll see who fills that seat and see what happens when we go racing in July.
Absolutely. Well, listen, thanks a lot, Tim. That's all the time we got tonight, but great to know your picks for the championship next year. It's going to be an exciting one, and we'll see you at the track in a month and a half, my friend.
Yeah, looking forward to the Kenny Upul 150 on Saturday, May 18th. Our weekly series kicks off on the Sunday. So if you're coming to be a part of the race at Scotia Speed World on Saturday, be sure to stay over, whether it's in the campground, whether it's at the Quality Inn right beside the racetrack. Join us on Sunday for the weekly series. Going to be a great weekend of racing. Looking forward, John, to this entire 2024 season.
That's it for our show today, guys. Thank you to Russell Smith Jr., Nicholas Naugle, Jarrett Butcher, and Tim Terry for getting us set for the 2024 season. I mean, who knows what's going to happen? There's only one way to find out. Be there or be square. Tickets are on sale, maritimeprostoctour.com. Tell us what you thought of our predictions. Email us, podcast@maritimeprostoctour.com. Until next time, keep your belts tight and your hands on the wheel. And, oh man, I gotta play that sound bite again. Just too good.